Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
The Human Experience is in session. My guest for today is Mr. Brad Burge from MAPS. Brad, it is your second time on HXP. Welcome back, sir.
I'm so excited to be back. Had a great chat last time.
Okay, Brad. So let's dig right into what MAPS is doing. I mean, the year is only in its first few months, but already some great things seem to be happening for MAPS. Your medical marijuana research received a boost in January when the DEA completed their inspection of the Johns Hopkins University trial site. Mm-hmm. What does this mean for the study's progress?
Oh yeah, well, just to say, I was last on in 2014, and it's 2016 now, and we were just in the middle of our phase 2 MDMA trials, and now we're just 2016 is just a big year, a big shift for us, and just like really moving to the next phase of the research, and that's including the marijuana research. So we've been working on getting this study started for about 14 years now, going through various levels of government obstacles, various review processes, including one review process that was removed last year. That was extra for marijuana research, and now researchers don't have to go through that with the Public Health Service. And then there was the firing of Dr. Sue Sisley, who was the original principal investigator on the study. Just for your listeners who may not remember, this is a study in 76 United States military veterans where we're exploring different strains of medical marijuana with different ratios of THC and CBD to treat symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, a lot of veterans are using marijuana for treatment of their post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people for whom VA treatments, including medications, just aren't working.
Right.
So we want to actually do the clinical trials, so the research necessary to actually find out how it works, whether it works, who it works for, and ultimately, hopefully, to make whole plant medical marijuana an FDA-approved prescription drug. So this study, we were thrilled last year. MAPS got our very first government grant. It was a $2.1 million grant from the state of Colorado.
Wow.
Now, the state of Colorado has, as you know, has legalized marijuana for recreational use, and the taxes, the income to the state from all the sales of that marijuana had to go somewhere. And so they created a grant program for medical marijuana research. So taking the taxes from legal recreational marijuana and putting it towards medical marijuana research. Right. MAPS was the largest recipient of a $9 million pool of funding that the state of Colorado was giving out to different applicants to do the research. $2.1 million now funding this marijuana for PTSD study, the very first government grant, first government funding that MAPS has ever received. So wow. Already that's just a huge advance. That's actual government funds being used to support nonprofit medical marijuana research. So very exciting. The trial is now actually in 2 sites. We've expanded it, same number of subjects, 76 subjects, but is now in 2 sites, one at Johns Hopkins and one in Phoenix, Arizona. And the DEA, as you mentioned, just recently approved the study site at the university in Baltimore, Johns Hopkins. And now we're just waiting to finish the construction on the study site that is in Phoenix, Arizona, where Dr. Sisley is going to be treating subjects there. So we expect this will get started this year. We are just about to finalize that construction, and then we'll be able to get that final DEA approval, get federal DEA approval, and then order the marijuana from the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which will be supplying the marijuana.
This is amazing, man. I mean, you guys are changing the world. I mean, that's what you're doing on a daily basis. I mean, it might not feel that way right now. I mean, the last time we talked, as you said, it was 2014. Did you expect so much of a transition? I mean, it seems like you guys have made a lot of progress.
Yeah, well, 2016 happens to be our 30th anniversary, actually. 30 years of working to remove government obstacles and remove the irrational stigma that's been around for so long surrounding psychedelics and medical marijuana. So it's been planned for a long time. My boss, Rick Doblin, has been at it since 1986. As I said, we're just moving into this whole new phase where we're, at least in the case of the MDMA research we're doing for PTSD, we're not, we're almost done with the original set of trials, the small set of trials. That'll be ultimately 6 phase 2 trials that we will have completed. And then just getting ready this year to move on to the much larger phase 3 trials that will hopefully ultimately, within the next 6 years or so, make MDMA a legal prescription treatment for PTSD.
Let's touch on that. So your studies into treating PTSD with MDMA assisted therapy, your Israel trial saw the last subject receiving their first treatment in the phase 2 study, and your Boulder, Colorado subjects leaving phase 2 and entering the 12-month long-term follow-up phase. What comes next for the 2 studies? Have any interesting insights been kind of gleaned from the data so far?
Oh, yeah. The Boulder trial, that's our second largest trial. Our largest one is the participants are still in their long-term follow-up, the largest one being in South Carolina, primarily in veterans, and 24 subjects. So not that much bigger, 24 and 23 subjects, but still generally small studies. The results from the Boulder study are still preliminary, still being analyzed, but they look extremely promising. Spoken with the investigators who've presented it to our research team, and they are very, very comparable with the really amazing results we got in our first couple of phase 2 studies, which showed that 83%. So over 3/4 of the people who received MDMA-assisted psychotherapy no longer qualified for PTSD anymore after treatment. So that's our published results. I can't talk specifically about the published results because there's the upcoming results for the Boulder study, because the data is still being analyzed, and we want to say exactly what the results were when they came out. But we are seeing extremely positive results. We've had quite a few study participants being open to speaking about their experience lately. We just had a really great fundraising appeal in the last part of last year, so just in December, a few months ago, and we're able to raise all of the funding that we needed left for that Boulder study. And in that process, several subjects came out and spoke on video about their experience, and we think that was really motivating for bringing a lot of new supporters on board to help get that study completely funded and completed. We'll also have one of the study participants who found herself deeply recovered from PTSD after the MDMA sessions that she received in the study. She'll be speaking at our upcoming 30th anniversary celebration, which is going to be in Oakland, California on April 17th. So just the sheer number of people who are willing to come out and share their stories. I think I spoke with 5 different participants just in the last few months from that study, who are not only feeling recovered from their PTSD, but are also feeling comfortable enough to speak publicly about their experience.
Such a big, huge step. I mean, I don't think I got a chance to email you or mention this to you, but after the first episode we did, I got an email from someone who had been deployed in Iraq, and he emailed me and he said thank you for doing that episode, because he was receiving a lot of kind of social stigma from the idea of using MDMA to treat his PTSD, and he was suffering from some really heavy PTSD. And he just said that he heard the episode, and through hearing it, it helped him decide that, he should give this a chance. So moving on here.
That's just great.
Yeah, truly changing people's lives. So there's an aspect of the MDMA assisted therapy that MAPS is doing in regards to couples, and I find this pretty interesting. It's a conjoined kind of thing where one person has the trauma and the other person doesn't. Can you explain it to us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So just the background is that before MDMA was criminalized in 1985, the year before MAPS was founded. It was fairly widely used in the therapeutic community. It still wasn't super well known. It wasn't taught in medical schools. But there was a fairly large community, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of therapists who were using MDMA to treat people in their practices. There hadn't been any clinical trials, so it was all anecdotal and experimental at the time. But one of the main reasons, or the main ways that MDMA was used was in couples counseling. So helping couples talk about their the more difficult aspects of their experience, and sometimes the MDMA helped people in these case reports come closer together to open up communication. In some cases, it helped people realize that they weren't meant to be together and they separated. Either way, it helped solve the problem. But in either case, the effects of MDMA seem to help people process openly, especially with others. So MAPS is focused primarily on post-traumatic stress disorder right now and treatments for PTSD, partly because MDMA just seems to have such amazing effectiveness when combined with psychotherapy for PTSD. This new study that we're starting, which is going to be with lead investigator Michael Mithofer. He's a psychiatrist who's been leading many of our other phase 2 studies, and then an additional sub-investigator named Candace Monson, who comes from Ryerson University in Canada. She's one of the original developers of cognitive behavioral conjoint therapy, which is a form of psychotherapy that's used for couples. And not just romantic couples either. And that's important to highlight that with the study, we're not just focused on romantic couples, but on one person with PTSD and another, what we call a concerned significant other. So this could be a brother or a sister or a friend or a family member, just somebody who's very close to this person and whose relationship with this person is impacted by the person with PTSD. PTSD does tend to affect more than just the individual. It also tends to affect the families and the people around them just by its very nature.
Right. Yeah.
So we're exploring PTSD. This new study, which is MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for one person with PTSD and one person who does not have PTSD, is not on our main drug development track, which is to say the data is not going to be submitted to the FDA for the purpose of making MDMA-assisted psychotherapy a legal treatment for PTSD. It's a new exploration of a possible use of MDMA in a way that it could be used once MDMA is approved. So it's gathering more data about the safety and also this new approach to using MDMA.
Yeah, and it's so important to kind of realize that you guys are studying all of the aspects of this. Especially in regards to, not just couples, but also family members. Your mom and your dad and your brother or your sister are also experiencing, PTSD affects everyone that's involved. So that's such a huge thing. I know that time is kind of short here. There's a global psychedelic dinner initiative that's coming up. What's going on there?
Thanks. We're really excited about these. It's MAPS has done a number of crowdfunding initiatives. I think we spoke about it last time, in fact, where we asked the public through social media, through email, to make small or large donations, whatever they can afford, to contribute in a community way to the development of MDMA and other psychedelics. We've also done crowdfunding campaigns for our psychedelic harm reduction initiative that we take to festivals and other events around the world. So the crowdfunding has been very successful. We found a great deal of success from crowdfunding, and we wanted to find a new way for people to both support the research financially, since we're a nonprofit, that's where it all comes from, except for that one grant for the marijuana research. But for the MDMA research, we still need this private funding. MAPS's mission is kind of twofold. One is to complete this research and to make these substances legally and safely available. The other one is to reduce the stigma and to help people, in a sense, feel more comfortable talking about psychedelics and psychedelic experiences and psychedelic therapy. Just like you said, just having these open conversations can draw people out of the woodwork and help people feel more comfortable talking about their issues and maybe seeking help in a different way. So that's part of what we want to do with these global psychedelic dinners. The idea is for people to host a dinner either in their home or at a restaurant, have people over. It can be a potluck or a picnic or at the beach or anything like that, and just talk openly about psychedelics. We're not encouraging people to use psychedelics at these events, but certainly to eat delicious food and to talk very specifically and openly about psychedelics. And we think that's going to, help people feel more comfortable, and not just feel more comfortable donating, but also feel more comfortable just talking about their experiences and finding new ways to heal that aren't reliant on the traditional psychiatric approaches. We're encouraging people to do it anytime this April. Our 30th anniversary, again, is this year, and we have a major event, a banquet and celebration happening in the San Francisco Bay Area, as I mentioned, on April 17th. As kind of the centerpiece of the global psychedelic dinners. But these are happening all over the world. We have over 230 people in more than 26 countries now registered to host these dinners. Mm-hmm. And the goal, what we're really aiming for, is we're hoping to fund through these dinners and through this banquet, through donations and sponsorships and people sharing their own crowdfunding pages and so on, to completely fund our purchase of 1 kilogram of MDMA for our phase 3 research.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's about 8,000 doses at or around there. And it'll be all the MDMA we need for our U.S. phase 3 trials. $400,000 may seem like a lot of money for a kilo of MDMA, which at street value is probably a lot less than that. Unfortunately, the FDA only looks at data using what's called good manufacturing practices certified MDMA or any other drug. So that is pharmaceutical grade MDMA. So all of the rules and regulations and bureaucratic requirements surrounding the manufacture of this legal pharmaceutical grade MDMA costs a total of $400,000. So that's the cost of doing FDA approved research. And we're hoping the global psychedelic dinners can help us reach that goal.
Huh. Yeah, very, very interesting, man. I really, really appreciate your time, Brad. Thank you so much. So last thing here. So MAPS is doing, you guys, the 30th anniversary is in April, and you're doing your own banquet and dinner celebration. Where and when is that happening? And I mean, what are you guys going to be up to what can attendees expect to enjoy while there?
Well, San Francisco Bay Area is a great place. Lots of fun things to do in the area if you're not already from here. So April 17th, starting at 5 o'clock, we have a banquet where we'll have a series of speakers. This is a beautiful banquet. It's all taking place at the Scottish Rite Center, which is an old Masonic temple on the shores of Lake Merritt in Oakland in the East San Francisco Bay. So a beautiful old venue with a lot of sort of mysticism and import to it. We feel like that's appropriate for the 30th anniversary of a psychedelic research organization. So we have a series of speakers. Rick Doblin, our founder and executive director, my boss, will be there speaking. We'll have researchers. Michael Mithofer, one of the researchers I mentioned, will also have 2 study subjects, participants, speaking about their experience. One woman from the Boulder study who experienced sexual assault and recovered from PTSD after being in our study, and another guy who's a U.S. Marine veteran, served in Iraq and also recovered from PTSD after serving in our trial. So we'll be having that banquet, series of talks, and then everybody will go upstairs to this amazing hall, this amazing celebration hall, where we'll have another address. It opens up for general admission at that point. The banquet and celebration are 2 different sets of tickets. If you go to the banquet, you can definitely come to the celebration. Then up there we'll have a series of musical and multimedia presentations. DJ Spooky, also known as Paul Miller, will be doing a fantastic musical act with a multimedia component to it. He usually does planetarium projections. We'll also have Android Jones and Phaedroid. Android has done some amazing projections on the Empire State Building, on the Vatican, on the Sydney Opera House. He'll be doing some of his live projections there. And then we'll conclude with a live performance, special performance from Ken Jordan, one of the 2 founding members of the Crystal Method, who will be playing for 45 minutes, a down-tempo electronic music set to round out the evening.
Wow, that sounds like quite the lineup, man. And wish I could attend. Really, really amazing. Brad, thank you so much again for your time. We're going to bring you back in another I don't know, year and a half or so and see where you guys are at, just because it seems like it's moving light speed. I mean, it was almost, it felt like it would take a lot longer to move through phase 2 trials, in my opinion, last time we talked.
Yeah, it's all concluding really quickly. And by then we'll be partway into our phase 3 trials in 2017 and moving full speed ahead towards prescription access.
All right, man. Where can people get to the MAPS website?
MAPS.org. Also, if you want to learn more about the psychedelic dinners, that's psychedelicdinners.org.
Brad, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your presence, man.
Thank you so much, Xavier. It's been great, as always.
This is The Human Experience. We will see you guys next week.